Good morning, West Coast. Good early afternoon, East Coast. We are on a full-blown time change. And, the big difference here between people with kids like myself and people without kids like Fids is that Fids woke up around 11 o'clock and was in full panic. He thought he had missed the show. But meanwhile, my daughter had her finger up my nose at like 5 in the morning. Kids don't care about time change. But Fids, how are you, buddy? We have a lot of questions to answer today. How you doing?
I am no kids Fids, they call me. And just to save my name a little bit, I am on the West Coast, so it was an 8 a.m. versus 9 a.m. wake up for me. It is still 9 a.m. here. We still have not gotten to 11. My butt is up and moving by 11 o'clock. I'm doing well, though. I'm ready for week 10. We had a huge bounce back week 9. We finished in the top 5% for DFS tournaments. We swept the board on Sunday and Monday, going 6-0 in our bets, 6-1 for the week because we lost on Thursday. However, huge bounce back week in week 9, hoping to continue rolling that on into week 10.
Yeah, we absolutely nailed last week, and we're hoping to keep that rolling this week. The only thing that we did miss last week, which seems to be a constant trend throughout fantasy football, is the dreaded tight end position. But we'll get back on track here with the tight end spot. But before we get into fantasy, as always, let's start with our wagering. Fids, what you got?
All right, so I want to first start off with a few bets that I'm definitely on, and then I have two that I need your opinion on, JP.
All right.
So, bets that I'm definitely on. Miami Dolphins -4. We've seen some money come in on the Bears. I am fading that. I like the Dolphins -4. I love Tua this year. I love the weapons and the speed that team has. Commanders -3. Vikings -3. This is the Kirk Cousins revenge game. Kirk Cousins generally not a great road quarterback. However, he's going back to a stadium where he's played like 100 games in. So like Kirk Cousins in this spot, and I like backing the Vikings. We are seeing late money come in on the Raiders and the Seattle Seahawks. And then my favorite bet of the week is a bet on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can't believe I'm doing this. Going back to the
Brady doing it again.
Going back to the Brady well yet again. I think this is finally the bounce back spot. I don't know if I'm more backing the Bucs or fading the Rams. Fading the Rams is something that I've done all season long. It is continuing this week with the banged up Cooper Kupp. I know he's playing, but ultimately I think the Bucs side of the ball is simply healthier, more talented at home. I like the Bucs -2.5, -3. I got them at 2.5.
Yeah, and just for fantasy purposes, Vikings game, Hawkinson is playing, is active, and is said to have a very, quote, large role in today's game. So if you have Hawkinson and you were worried about his role this week for the Minnesota Vikings, coach came out and said that he will have a large role. So keep that in mind.
JP, here's the two that I wanted to get your opinion on. In the beginning of the week, the Patriots versus Colts line opened at a Patriots -6. Patriots were a big favorite in this game. We've seen that line move to 4.5. There's major money coming in on the Colts without Jonathan Taylor, without Sam Ehlinger. Without Matt Ryan. Like, real question marks for me. I have been backing the Patriots all season. I think this team is, one of the best coach teams in the NFL, limits their mistakes. Mac Jones hasn't been great, but he's starting to turn it around. I want to bet on the Patriots. I kind of like the Patriots money line in this spot because we're seeing the points move the wrong direction. I don't like taking the spread, but I'm comfortable playing the money line. So that's one of them I want your opinion on. And the second one is the Arizona Cardinals against the Seahawks. We've seen major Seahawks money come in all week. This line also opened at around a 6. It's down all the way to a 1.5.
Wow.
That's absolutely crazy. So much Seahawks money came in. We've seen these teams play a few weeks ago. The Seahawks won 19-9 in Seattle just 2 weeks ago, I think. Now this game's back in Arizona. However, in that game in Seattle, Arizona had more time of possession, more plays run, more total yards, more first downs. They just scored less points. So my thought is I saw this line open and thought it was fishy to begin with, that the Cardinals were a big favorite. The public came in and hammered the Seahawks, and I think I'm going to go the other way and take the Cardinals. I think I'm going to go the other way and take the Patriots. What do you think about those two?
Yeah, and I'll start with that Patriots game, right? So we're talking about the New England Patriots at home at the midway point of the season, okay? This is Bill Belichick time, okay? He understands they have to start rolling right here, right now. Mac Jones, again, was full-time last week. He's starting, like you said, to pick it up. I have no problem this week taking New England Patriots against an Indianapolis Colts team that seems to just be in absolute shambles at the current position. Like you said, Deion Jackson is playing, but New England Patriots play very well against the run, right? So they're going to take away Deion Jackson. I get it. He's not Jonathan Taylor. I understand that. But when he did play for Jonathan Taylor, fantasy purposes wise, he had 25 plus fantasy points. I am playing Deion Jackson in one of my leagues. I am crushed on bye weeks. But with that being said, in terms of wagering this game, I would love to get some juice on that money line. I think it's at -5 currently. At least that's what I saw on my account was -5. But I'm a little iffy about that. I'd rather take the money line there. Back New England, in New England, halfway point of the season, have to get it rolling. As far as the other game, I mean, that swing is absurd. I'm absolutely probably jumping on the Cardinals here in this game. I'm very surprised that everyone jumped on the Seahawks with that much steam. I like the Cardinals at home. I think Hopkins continues to roll here in this game. Benjamin's got to do something eventually, and maybe this is the game that he can kind of wake up and do something in terms of fantasy purposes. But I do like the Cardinals here money line as well. So I think we are in lockstep there with those two games.
Is James Conner out again this week?
I believe so. I haven't checked this morning, but
all
right.
Likely to play. James Conner's playing too, so I really like.
There you go. Even more of a reason why to take the Arizona Cardinals here this week. All right, so guys, please make sure you're getting in the questions on the chat here. I basically took some of the questions that I got via Twitter, copy and pasted them right into the chat for those that got it in early enough on my Twitter. If you do not see your question there, make sure you go ahead and you post it in so we can get to those fantasy football questions. Fizz, before we get on these questions, because these questions are season-long type questions, are there any daily type notes that you want to just hit real quick, or do you kind of want to jump right to season-long questions?
Sure, no, I could hit some daily notes. I'll give over the names that are both in my core four and in the optimizers. This week, I'm playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Buccaneers defense against the Rams, Joe Mixon, and Ramondre Stevenson in every single lineup that I have going. Those guys are core. They are played by the optimizers often. They are great value plays. I love all of them. In terms of quarterbacks, we're looking at guys like Trevor Lawrence, surprisingly, Josh Allen, unsurprisingly, or Aaron Rodgers against the Detroit Lions. And then in the wide receiver space, if you're going to spend up, it's either Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson. If you're going to spend down, we're looking directly at a guy like Tyquan Thornton, heavily played in the optimizers, and we'll talk about his name in the season-long space in a bit because I see a lot of these streaming wide receivers that I think Thornton's name should be amongst that crowd. So, yeah, that's kind of my DFS thoughts.
Awesome. And then just a little note on that. We lost Fitz there for a second, but he'll be back. So just a little note on that. Damian Harris is out, okay? Damian Harris is out. So make sure that you are starting Stevenson if you have Stevenson. I mean, you're starting him anyway, but especially in daily, Harris is out. So he's going to be a workhorse all over again, and I expect some big numbers out of Stevenson. Fidge, you with us here, bud?
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what happened there.
You're fine. All right, so let's go ahead and let's jump into the questions here. So Javi Goal asks, start two in PPR. We got Pittman, McLaurin, or Josh Palmer. Pittman, McLaurin, or Josh Palmer. I can go first here with this one. This one was a tricky one after Josh Palmer. I want to start Josh Palmer everywhere this week. They are very obviously banged up at the wide receiver position in LA. I understand McLaurin and Pittman are both wide receiver ones. However, Josh Palmer is technically wide receiver one this week for the Chargers. So I'm banking on the best quarterback out of those three guys in Herbert. So that's why I want to go Josh Palmer here. Now, the second guy was very tricky for me, Pittman or McLaurin. So I just do not trust Ellinger. So I like Pittman if I have him, but if I'm comparing him to McLaurin, I like what I'm seeing with McLaurin since what's his name became the quarterback there in Washington. So I'm going to go with McLaurin, and I'm going to go with Josh Palmer here in full point PPR.
I agree with both.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. Pitts or Isaiah Likely. So I've been getting a lot of Isaiah Likely and Pitts questions. I feel like every Pitts owner is on that panic button, been on that panic button, saved up their waiver, and must have gotten lucky and got likely. I here am going to go Pitts. Okay. I am ride or die Pitts. I mean, this is whatever episode of this live show. I've had 33 episodes of my podcast, and I've been on Pitts since episode 0. Okay. And he is just starting to turn it on. Now, on the flip side, okay, Isaiah Likely is obviously tight end 1. Andrews is out, but he's not sneaking up on anybody this week. Okay. They understand, this defense understands that Likely is a very good pass catcher. They are out their wide receivers this week in Baltimore. I think the defense kind of keys in on Likely and Duvernay here, obviously in Baltimore. So I'd rather get that upside potential of Pitts than take a chance on Likely. Where are you at with that? Because again, this is a heavy question.
I think I would go Pitts. We know Mark Andrews is doubtful. That's not an out yet. It's obviously on the wrong side of questionable. So it's looking like he's going to be out, but he's had no practice the last 2 weeks and ended up playing in both weeks. So you don't know if he randomly wakes up Monday morning and says, I'll play limited snaps, and that takes away, 20% of Likely's volume and workload. Pitts is the highest projected tight end on the DFS slate. I know obviously that doesn't include Kelsey because he's in the night game. It doesn't include a potential Mark Andrews or Likely because they're in the Monday night games. This is only the 1s and 4s slate. But Pitts' return and his projections, according to the optimizers this week, is really good. And we also know that the game between the Chargers and the Falcons opened the line. The total for the line opened at a 48. It's been bet up to a 49.5. So there's trends towards the over and a high scoring game. This is one of the highest point totals on the board. You are not going to see that in the Ravens Saints game. That total is going the other way. It opened at 48. It's down to 47.5. And the Saints, I don't know if you mentioned this, JP, but one of the best teams against the tight end this season. Yep. So just coming off a shutout of the Raiders. I don't know if you want to go head into the Saints D on a heavy rest week with more preparation time.
Yeah, and so what basically Fitz is saying, guys, here is Vegas doesn't lie in terms of points, right? They expect a lot of points, which then equates to high fantasy outputs. Now, Pitts is obviously, you could say he's their best pass catcher. Some would argue for London there in Atlanta, but I'm taking my chances there on Pitts. All right, next question. Juju, I'll let you go first here, Fitz. Juju or Boyd in a full point PPR? Tough.
Boyd, because the last 2 weeks have been so solid and he's really good. Juju's been steady volume all year. I don't think the presence of Kadarius Toney is going to do anything too crazy. They're a 12.5 point favorite against the Titans tonight. So if they're going to win by double digits, that means Mahomes gets some wide receivers involved. And that means Juju has his 8 targets. I honestly think they're both good options. I would lean Boyd because of what he's done the last few weeks, because we know Chase is out, and because it's full point PPR, having that guy in a slot who's just going to catch a bunch of balls is a safe, very safe option. Both of them are safe, but I lean Boyd.
Yeah, I like both of them. I'm also leaning Boyd for the fact that Jamar Chase has now been out for a couple weeks. Boyd's been more in a target, volume type role in practice probably all week long. He's becoming more familiar. He's already familiar with his quarterback, but I think heading into this game, I would like to see Boyd get even more involved than he has in the past. Now, Juju, again, is a good play, but I kind of think we know what we're going to get from Juju at this point. I think the upside there with Boyd is a lot higher than the upside with Juju. Again, I like both, but I'm going to bet on the upside with Boyd here. Question, Kirk, Palmer, or Pittman in a full point PPR? Got to pick one. For the same reasons as I mentioned before, I'm going to go Palmer, Kirk, and Pittman. All right, next question, Monty.
Are we only choosing one, or are we choosing 2? Just one?
It was just one. Let's choose 2, though. Do you like Kirk over Pittman?
You see, that's where it gets really tricky, because Pittman's game last week was deceiving. He did not perform, but he dropped a touch. His foot was called down on the 1, and it would have been a touchdown, and then he dropped another 40-yard pass. So he could have ended up with 80 yards and a touchdown, and stat line looked completely different. And we'd be saying, oh, he's fine with Ellinger, whatever. On the other hand, Kirk's been struggling, but they're going against the Raiders, and every DFS optimizer is playing Trevor Lawrence. So if people are hammering the Trevor Lawrence play, the Kirk stuff gets interesting. I probably would lean Christian Kirk.
I'm probably going to go the other way, and it's very close. And the only reason why is Ingram seems to be getting more and more and more and more involved here for Jacksonville, which that means takes away targets from Christian Kirk. I think in a full point PPR, you're looking for the guy that's going to catch the most balls here. I can see very similar yardage for both of these guys. So I want to see the guy that's going to get more targets, and I think that's going to be Pitts here in this week. So I'm going to go with Pitts over Kirk, but both very close. Monty, Deion Jackson, or Antonio Gibson in a standard points league. Monty, Deion Jackson, or Gibson in a standard point league. I think if you're looking for a floor, I'm going Monty. If you're looking for a ceiling, I'm going Deion Jackson. I think Monty's going to get his 12 to 14. I know Khalil Herbert's been getting his share of carries. Monty's still averaging over 10 carries a game. I can see him even busting into the end zone here for a touchdown, possibly. I think his floor is safe. I think Deion Jackson's floor is iffy, but I think he's got a very high ceiling because, like I mentioned earlier, what we've seen for him when Jonathan Taylor was out last time was 25 plus fantasy points. But again, low floor for Deion Jackson. So I'm going to go Monty floor, Deion Jackson ceiling.
You see Deion Jackson on Twitter, JP?
I don't. What happened? What do you do now?
Make sure you follow this man. He tweeted, "I haven't even gotten in my bag yet." So
okay. He wants his money too.
I think he's referring to he's got a boatload of moves that he hasn't even shown off. He finishes the RB1 in a week, and he's going to look to do it again. He knows what's in line for him if he performs really well. For that reason, I'd play into the Deion Jackson motivation factor away from Monty. Gibson is a really solid play in a PPR or half PPR situation, but in a standard, no. I feel similar about Monty, the 50-50 split. Deion Jackson going against the Patriots, it does have a potential lower floor than Monty going against the Dolphins. Now that I consider the matchups, give me Montgomery. I changed my mind.
There we go. Yeah, I would. If I'm forced to start one of those guys, I'm going Monty. I like that floor there.
But make sure you follow Deion on Twitter because he's an awesome follow.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do that afterwards. And again, Gibson, if it's a half point and full point, I'm probably actually gonna start over both of those guys. But it's a standard league. I'm gonna go with Monty. All right, next question again involves Likely and Pitts, but he has this guy adds a curveball. The Juice adds a curveball in Ingram. I had mentioned earlier, Ingram has been getting very heavily involved in the Jacksonville offense as of late. However, again, I'm going to the well, and I'm going to go with Pitts. Tony, Pacheco, Henderson, or grab DeAndre Carter, full point PPR.
DeAndre Carter, easily.
Right. But again, make sure you are looking at his status. I haven't checked as of about an hour if he is still questionable with an illness. He is not injured, but he is sick, and he did not practice on Friday and did not practice on Saturday.
Other than that, Pacheco, because there was a report that the Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy sat down and they said, how do we make sure that Pacheco gets over 10 touches this week or every week moving forward? So
I didn't read that. That's a good little bit there.
But this week in full PPR, DeAndre Carter.
Yeah, I'm actually forced to start Kadarius Toney in one of my leagues, and I'm not happy about it at all. However, I think Andy Reid finds a way to get him the ball at least a couple of times in this game, and I'm hoping and I'm praying it's like a shovel pass at the end in the end zone. I mean, it's a classic Andy Reid. Let's get our new toy involved. Shovel pass in the red zone, and I'm hoping he can just punch it in, and that'll be huge for my fantasy team because that is obviously a huge glaring problem. I'm crushed with bye week, so I'm forced to start Toney. Brian,
really good one on deck with Brian's question here.
Yeah, if Waller doesn't play, who do I drop to grab a tight end? Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Foreman? Who are we dropping to pick up a tight end, Fitz?
I don't want to drop either of them at all.
Let me talk on this because he sent me a picture of his team. His team is very good from top to bottom, and these are the two guys that he would probably be choosing to drop out of everyone on his bench.
Let me ask you a question. If we look at his weekly matchup, does he have to play a defense? Does he have to play a kicker this week? Can we get away with, if he has a really good team, if he's in a really good position for the league, is there a way to get around it? Can you maybe forego 8 points to hold CEH on your roster? On the other hand, you'd have to drop CEH over Foreman. That seems like a three-way backfield at this point, but I really don't want to drop him because not only is he getting fairly consistent work, He's really good around the red zone. And if any injury were to happen in that backfield, I mean, suddenly CEH is back to being a weekly RB1, RB2 borderline kind of guy.
Yeah. So looking at the picture that he showed me, I'm not even sure if they have a defense and a kicker in this league. They have a very shallow bench, and his bench consists of Nick Chubb, Cooper, and Cordero Patterson. I'm not dropping any one of those guys. I told him, and I mentioned
I'd rather drop Cordero.
You would drop Cordero over Clyde Edwards?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to disagree there. I think Patterson's going to get involved here. Atlanta's playing for something. They're going to get him on the field eventually, whether it's this week, next week, the week after. I just see more upside with Patterson than I do Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that's the only reason why I'm keeping him over Clyde Edwards. Foreman, I'm keeping.
Brian, you're in a good spot altogether.
Right. Yeah. Foreman, I'm definitely keeping, guys. The Carolina Panthers have the easiest remaining schedule for fantasy purposes against running backs. Hubbard is banged up. Obviously, he's not playing again this week. Ride the Foreman train for as long as it's on the tracks. Okay. He's very, very useful in fantasy purposes. Next question. Raymond or Zay Jones in PPR? So this is a really hard one. Raymond is playing for the Detroit Lions. Khalif, I think his first name is. I don't really remember. I'm probably going to go Zay Jones here. I think Amon St. Brown is needed in this offense, and I think they're going to have to really start targeting him a little bit more than they have since he's come back from injury. I think the Detroit Lions are going to run the heck out of the ball today as well. I know Swift is on a quote-unquote limited basis this week, but Jamal Williams is a phenomenal back. Green Bay can't stop the run. Green Bay stops the pass very well. So I think Detroit's going to come out and try to run the ball a little bit more this week than we have seen from them in the past. So I'm going to go with Zay Jones.
Zay Jones, according to my optimizers, which I really trust these projections a lot more than standard Yahoo projections. These ones on the optimizers are really freaking good. 10.7 for Zay Jones, 9.9 for Khalif Raymond. I would be leaning
flip a coin.
Zay Jones, but it is a coin flip. Both of them are in similar situations where they're going to see a lot of the field, potentially a high target volume, and in games where their team is both the underdog. So if their team is losing, they should be throwing. Honestly, not bad dart throw starts this week, both of them.
Right. So I think the reason for my backing is Green Bay Packers play really well against the pass. So that's the only reason why I
would go Zay Jones myself. Mm-hmm.
Tony asks, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Khalil Herbert? I'm going to go Herbert here.
Herbert.
3 guys, 2 spots. Pittman, Kirk, or DeAndre Carter? Pittman, Kirk, or DeAndre Carter?
Oh, I feel like this is the same question we got before.
Yes, but I think Carter is
Palmer instead of DeAndre Carter. So now how does that throw in the wrench of this? It makes it a lot harder, right? It takes out 100%. The guy that we were for sure on. Now they're kind of all a coin flip. At this point, I would go, you know what, JP, you talk on it. I'm going to check a few things.
Yeah, I'm going to go Pittman and Kirk here. And my reasoning for that is Carter is wide receiver 2. Pittman and Kirk are technically wide receiver 1s. For their respected teams. Now, the reason why I picked Palmer earlier, and I mentioned it earlier, was the quarterback play. Obviously, Herbert is the best quarterback out of on those 3 teams. However, DeAndre Carter hasn't practiced in 2 days. He's sick. Pittman is going to get his targets. Christian Kirk is going to get his targets. So I'm going to take those 2 guys over DeAndre Carter here this week.
Pittman's got a 13.5 projection. Kirk's got a 12.5. DeAndre Carter's got a 10.5, according to this stuff that I really trust. On the flip side of that, DeAndre Carter is playing in the game with the highest point total, and Pittman's playing in the game with the lowest point total. I would say the guy that you're locked in as the middle guy is Christian Kirk, and then you're deciding between the upside pop off ability of a Carter or Pittman. I'd go Pittman and Kirk.
Yeah, and also again, right? What is New England going to stop? They're going to pick to stop something. Is it going to be the run? Is it going to be the pass? I think they're going to try to stop the run. They're going to let Ellinger try to pass, I should say, on them. Give me Pittman here and Kirk. Tunyon or Isaiah Likely in a full point PPR. Tunyon or Isaiah Likely.
Got Detroit this week. It's that cake matchup that we love to see. Likely.
I'm going to go Likely here too. I just think his upside is a lot higher than Tunyon's. I do think Green Bay's bounce back game is this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dillon gets involved a lot this week in the running game.
Is
for Green
Lazard
Bay.
playing?
I know he was questionable. Not sure. Haven't checked within the past hour or so.
Active. So definitely go likely.
That downs Tunyon. Next question is a quarterback question. Our first quarterback question of the day: Geno Smith or Trevor Lawrence? I am curious to see what your little computer tech thing you use over there is saying for this one. Geno Smith or Trevor Lawrence?
I personally think it's got to be Trevor Lawrence because of the matchup. The optimizer says Geno, however. Geno does have a good matchup going against this Cardinals defense, but I want to point out that like the first 4 weeks, the Cardinals defense against the pass was abysmal, like so bad. The last 2 weeks, they've started to pick up the pace a little bit. Like I said, they had that 19-9 game against the Seahawks recently. Seahawks have good weapons, but ultimately, I think you have to play into the matchup here. Trevor Lawrence, again, played by every single DFS optimizer lineup that I check. He is in a dream spot. 8 out of the 9 quarterbacks that the Raiders have faced, I got confused how many weeks we've had, are top 10 quarterbacks on the weeks. So Trevor Lawrence, I think, is going to be a top 10 quarterback, and I think you're looking Geno to be on that fringe.
Oh, this is hard. I'm going to go Geno Smith. I think I'm going to go Geno Smith here. I've been doubting Geno Smith since he was a New York Jet, and I can't tend to do it right here now. I think his weapons are just better. And DK and Lockett both are playing this week. I do like Arizona in that game, as I mentioned earlier, but I think Geno Smith outplays Trevor Lawrence here. I think it's going to be close. I think they'll be within the same 5-point, differential in terms of fantasy points. But I think I'm going to go with Geno Smith and potential of upside there with his wide receivers.
Geno Smith does have 10 more yards in his projected points this week, and in passing yards, and 7 more rushing yards. If you're looking
almost deadlock,
that's looking at the props market. So if you're looking at like betting Geno Smith's passing yard props, not a projection, sorry. If you're looking at his props market, which also a great indicator for these things, right? It's 250 over under for his passing yards, 18.5 for his rushing yards. Lawrence 240 and 11. So looking at Geno to have more yardage upside, and then the touchdowns. I mean, I guess you'd go Geno's weapons are better for touchdowns. However, this week I think is an outlier for Trevor Lawrence. I'm heavy into Lawrence this week.
All right. Ryan asks Chris Olave or St. Brown in a 0.5-point PPR. I know you said you were high on St. Brown. Are you still high on St. Brown again with Chris Olave now that we know Michael Thomas is out for the rest of the season?
You can never not play Amon-Ra.
Right. I agree there. And also Landry, I believe.
You gotta play Olave too. I think we had this discussion last week where someone was borderline starting Olave. Olave, if you're in that spot, you've drafted so well because you picked off Olave late, and then you also hit on your other receivers, or you picked up some good flex options along the way. You're in a really good spot if you're considering Amon-Ra or Olave. However, this week you cannot bench Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say that as well. I do obviously love Olave, like you just said. And then Landry's also probably playing this week as well. I do think in terms of an actual game, it helps the Saints dramatically. In terms of fantasy, it takes away a couple targets from Olave. So I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown here in a 0.5-point PPR. And I have a question for you now, Fids. I'm having a dilemma at my running back position. I have Deion Jackson and I have A.J. Dillon. Who am I playing here?
Deion, for sure.
For sure? Do you not?
Yeah, Deion's guaranteed to get twice the workload.
Again, yes, but Detroit is horrendous against the run. Are the Packers going to try to get him going here? Or are they just going to say, you know what, it is what it is?
The Packers don't have the opportunity right now to get someone going. The Packers need to get themselves going, and they need to lay the hammer down on a team, and they need to get a win, and that means leaving Aaron Jones on the field. Deion Jackson's, I think, clearly the guy, and he's even told you he hasn't even gotten in his bag yet. I got one for you, JP. I have Swift on my team, right? And we're hearing now Swift is going to play limited snaps and blah, 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 and limiting his workload and his usage, and all that stuff absolutely terrifies me, right? Normally, I would read that limiting snaps for a wide receiver, and I would think to myself, oh, they're just going to take him off the field when it's a rushing down so he doesn't have to block, but he'll be out there when they're throwing, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. when it's a running back, if he's only going to be out there for 15 snaps, is he going to only get 7 touches? Do I play Swift or do I bench Swift for Brian Robinson with McKissick out? I know it's a big drop off, but with McKissick out and only Gibson and Robinson in that backfield, Robinson's going to get 12 touches, 14 touches. Do you go with the volume or do you go with the upside of Swift?
I hate both of these guys this week.
Yeah, me too.
And I think just to back up the Swift point, he hasn't been getting red zone touches, right?
No.
So, I mean, Williams has been vulturing everything. So if he catches the ball, gets tackled within the 5, Williams is coming in and taking all those fantasy points away from you. And if he's on a limited basis, the chances of him getting inside the 5 on a catch and reception is lower. So I'm probably going to take the opportunity in Robinson over the opportunity that I think I'm going to see in Detroit with Swift this week.
And if you think about it the other way, if Gibson gets tackled inside the 5-yard line, then it's
Robinson
coming in. I kind of view them as similar backfields where I'd rather have the Jamal Williams and the Robinson than the Swift and Gibson.
Right. Agreed. 100%. All right. Another tight end question here. Hawkinson or Zach Ertz? I love Zach Ertz this week. Give me all the Zach Ertz share. Going against one of the worst defenses against tight ends on fantasy purposes from week 1 to now. I love Zach Ertz here moving forward. All the attention's going to Hopkins. We've been seeing it since he came back. He's still out. He's playing his mind out, but Ertz is the beneficiary because of all that attention going to Hopkins. Give me Ertz here.
I agree.
Yeah.
I know you said Hawkinson's going to be very involved, but it's, again, first game with a new team versus Ertz, who's steady Eddie. You got to go with Ertz.
Right. All right. Make sure you guys are getting the questions here. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're liking this page. Who do you think, Fids, is going to lead the week in fantasy points outside the quarterback position? Who do you have leading? Yeah, because usually, so guys, if this is the first time viewing here, we always do quarterbacks. I'm throwing a curveball at Fids this week.
Right now.
Yeah. Who do you have leading in a full point PPR, all players this week in fantasy football?
I'm between Justin Jefferson and Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I'm going to go Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I'm going to agree, but I'm going to also give another name. I'm going to agree there for sure. I think Washington is going to get torched today by Justin Jefferson. Again, I just mentioned Hawkinson is going to be involved. You have to account for him when he's on the field. This is somebody that, the Minnesota Vikings have not really had alongside of Jefferson, this type of playmaker. I'm really loving Justin Jefferson as well this week. However, another name alongside of Eckler, because Eckler's always a big name that I kind of like this week, is T. Higgins, right? I do like T. Higgins. He had if it wasn't for that touchdown last week, fantasy owners would have been PO'd and they would have been like, what is he doing? Blah, blah, blah. I like Higgins in this spot without Jamar Chase. I think he has a really good week this week, is T. Higgins.
I like that T. Higgins call. We said the same thing about Boyd. Hayden Hurst is the optimizer play of the week.
Yes.
Joe Mixon is in every single DFS lineup of mine and in the optimizers as well. Sharp action, heavily on the Bengals. All of that is just reasons to say you want someone in on the Bengals offense. So definitely like T. Higgins this week. Certainly can't fade that. In terms of some guys who might surprise you, right? Who do you think you might want to get ahead of in the waiver wire? That's always my thought going into a week, is have we established the Rams backfield? Is Cam Akers going to be the guy? Is he going to get the most carries? Is Kyron Williams going to come in and take over that spot? Is there Tyquan Thornton for the Patriots that, the Patriots love this guy and Devontae Parker's got a knee injury. Should we get ahead of that steam and pick him up? Is there any free agents that you're eyeing?
But before I answer that, can we, because you mentioned before about Thornton, right?
Yeah.
So your mindset with Thornton is Parker's banged up. Thornton's going to step right in so you're starting Thornton wherever you got a chance.
I'm not.
Let's say
I am playing him in DFS. Yes.
Okay.
Because of his price tag has not caught up with the other guys but the Khalif Raymonds, the DeAndre Carters, these guys who are filling in a wide receiver 2 role. Tyquan Thornton is doing the exact same thing, but his name is just not being mentioned like the other guys, right? We're seeing We're seeing Carter. We're seeing Zay Jones. We're seeing Khalif Raymond. We're seeing these guys all over the place. But Thornton might actually be the best one of all of them because the Patriots love this guy. Like, they have the hope that he develops into their wide receiver one, into their big threat playmaker. He is a home run hitting type of guy. I think, whether or not you're actually playing Thornton, stashing him on the bench for a potential late season run is a really smart idea. They do have the bye week next week. So that means you have to hold a kind of low owned wide receiver through a bye. But if he ends up with 10 targets and 8 for 85 with a touchdown, and we know Devontae Parker is going to probably miss the rest of the season, and the Patriots schedule gets tough. They're going to be throwing a lot. They're going to probably be phased out of the playoffs because the Bills and the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs from that division. Even the Jets are ahead of them. The Patriots currently in 4th. So if we think the Patriots are lower in their division than the Patriots normally are, they're going to feature Thornton down the stretch and try and get him the ball or try and make him a playmaker. I like getting ahead of the market and picking up Thornton now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a great move. Ron, while I answer this question, can you explain, unless Fids, do you know what the tight end bonus means?
I would assume tight end bonus is like one of those tight end premium leagues. Some leagues have a thing where if like normal PPR is 1 point or half a point, but if a tight end catches the ball, because tight ends generally perform so much worse than other positions, you get a 1.5 PPR or a 2-point PPR just from that position. I still don't think it changes the Ertz versus Hawkinson debate. I think Ertz is probably the guy more likely to get more catches and a touchdown this week. I would wait and just enjoy Hawkinson with a new quarterback, with a new system where they might feature him, but sit back and watch it. And if it goes off, be happy that it's there for you in future weeks, but you got to stick with Ertz this week.
Yeah. And I wish this question would have been asked last week. This who am I stashing? Because I was big on stashing Deion Jackson, right? The Colts stink. And Jonathan Taylor is banged up, right? I wouldn't be surprised, and I mentioned this on my podcast for a few weeks in a row now. Why would they continue to bang him around for no reason? He's the cornerstone of your entire team. He's a running back. They don't last long. So I could see the Colts shutting him down eventually. And then Deion Jackson becomes that lead dog in fantasy playoff time for a bad team in a full point PPR where he could be catching a lot of balls as well. I'm loving the stash of Deion Jackson. So if he stinks today and gets dropped because the guy that owns him thinks Jonathan Taylor is going to come back, I would absolutely go ahead and use a high waiver on him and just wait to see what happens in Indianapolis, because I'm pretty convinced at this point that the Colts are just going to mail it in eventually and say, what are we doing? Why his ankle's all messed up? Why are we going to ruin it? Because the more he favors the ankle, you never know. A knee injury, you just don't know with running backs. So if I were the Colts, I'm looking to shut down Jonathan Taylor as soon as I feel like my season is done. Why put wear and tear on the tires if there's no reason to do so?
And to that point, JP, we've already seen Irsay come in and bench Matt Ryan for the team. There's a lot of reports out of Colts camp that the players were not happy that Matt Ryan was benched, that they love Matt Ryan, but this came from top down, that they wanted to say, all right, let's see what we got in Ellinger. And if this season goes awry, we're going to draft CJ Stroud or one of these quarterbacks in the next draft and have a really good pick. But let's use this season to figure out what we have in Ellinger instead of trying to tread the old tires of another veteran quarterback. You have to think there's, one devil's advocate thought to the Jonathan Taylor side is maybe Frank Reich is on the hot seat and he wants to play JT to rack up some late season wins and save his job. On the other side, Irsay might just come in from the top rope and just be like, nah, you're not.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, so I really like the idea of stashing Deion Jackson. I'm the idiot in the room that dropped him after he was an RB1 because I was like, JT's back. It's meaningless now. Nyheim Hines is back. They end up trading Nyheim Hines, and JT has a lingering, serious, re-injured, issue. So Deion, love him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, if you can get your hands on him, and if you want him, pray that he doesn't really have a good game today, and then you can probably easily either pick him up on the wire or trade for him for something really worth nothing. All right, if that is it for questions, because I got no more questions here. Fitz, you got anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
Let's start including that segment every week. A stash of the week, a pickup of the week.
Works
get ahead of the market. That's something I always try and do. I will say this: I do have some week 10 bets that I do think that you should get ahead of. I do think you should go ahead and take the Cowboys minus 2.5 against the Packers in week 10. Love the Cowboys, hate the Packers. We're getting it at less than the 3. I would jump on that now. And the 49ers minus 3.5. I forget who they're playing right now, but I remember loving the matchup and loving the number. So I think that number is going to move to 5 or 6. I think the Cowboys line is going to move to 4.5. So I'm jumping ahead of both of them now. Cowboys minus 2.5, 49ers minus 3.5 for week 10 bets to get ahead of.
All right, guys, please remember, like, subscribe, share this, because we'll be back every Sunday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Fids, good luck this week. All our listeners, best of luck this week. We'll see you guys back next week.
See you, JP. Deuces.
See you, buddy. Have a good day.
You too.